Phantom Lake is an unassuming pond located deep within the desolate desert of West Texas, approximately 4 miles from the small town of Toyavale. The pond is fed by a deep underground aquifer, which has been used as an agricultural water source since it was first noted by locals in the mid-1930s. Interestingly, Phantom Lake actually derives its name as a direct result of this agricultural usage, as in the 1930s, the shoreline of the lake began to rapidly recede as the water from within it was drawn elsewhere, causing the lake to seemingly disappear over a span of just a few short months. In the year 1948, the land would fall into the hands of the state's Reclamation Bureau as the government recognized the agricultural importance of the small spring-fed pond. While the government was able to slow the incoming demand for water from the spring over the following decades, this demand once again equaled the spring's water output, and thus the small pond near the mouth of the springs has not grown in size for many years. Notably, the waters of Phantom Lake Spring are also home to 5 endangered aquatic species: the Comanche Springs pupfish, the fish species Pacoscambusia, the snail species Phantom Trionia, the Phantom Spring snail, and the crustacean species Gomaris hyalelides. Despite the waters of Phantom Lake Spring originating from an underground aquifer, the temperature of the water within the spring is unusually warm for spring-fed waters, measuring a constant year-round temperature of 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Thus, as the sport of cave diving began to emerge over the latter half of the 20th century, the underwater cave system feeding the waters into Phantom Lake Spring would become a sought-after locale for brave divers to map out, as the deep, winding cave system concealed beneath the modest pond at the surface is one of the deepest and most expansive underwater cave systems in the entire country. Due to the aforementioned factors of the land that the spring is located on being owned by the Bureau of Reclamations, and the various endangered species that inhabit the waters of Phantom Lake Springs, diving at the site is actually prohibited to the public, as the mouth of the underwater cave system is blocked off by a large, sturdy gate. However, this is not to say that the cave is completely inaccessible to divers, as the state does grant access to the site via permit, mostly to scientific dive teams studying the marine life within it or charting the depths of the expansive underwater caves. One of the most extensive expeditions into the cave's depths was conducted in the year 2012 by divers Becky Schott, Andy Pitkin, Jason Richards, and Kurt Bowen, who, over the course of a week, charted and explored the depths of the Phantom Lake Spring cave system, reaching a horizontal depth within them of 9,845 feet and reaching a maximum vertical depth of 237 feet, which shattered the previous record of 79 feet maximum vertical depth reached by divers previously. This 2012 exploration expedition revealed that the Phantom Lake Springs underwater cave system ran much deeper and was much more expansive than previously anticipated, and thus, in the years following, several more highly skilled divers, a part of scientific dive teams, would descend into the Phantom Lake Springs cave to chart the depths of them, traveling through the alien landscapes in deep caverns that had previously never been seen by humans before. In October of 2023, another dive team was assembled to further chart the depths of the underwater caverns of Phantom Lake Springs. This 2-man dive team consisted of 2 extremely experienced cave divers, a man named Andy Pitkin and a man named Brett Hemphill. The former was one of the members of the aforementioned exploration expedition in 2012, while the latter was one of the world's premier cave divers, having set the U.S. national record for depth reached while cave diving, first in the year 2008, when he reached a maximum depth of 407 feet on a dive in the very fun to say Weeki Wachee Springs Cave in the state of Florida. As some of my earliest viewers might recall, the depth he reached on this dive at the Weeki Wachee Springs Cave actually was not quite as deep as the bottom of the narrow U-shaped sump in Plura Cave in Norway, which was the location of the deadly incident that was the subject of one of the first few videos on my channel, as that sump reached a maximum depth of 442 feet deep. Anyways, just a year after Andy Pitkin's expedition team had charted new depths within Phantom Lake Cave, in 2013, Brett would also make an outing to the cave system, where he established a new personal depth record and a new depth record within the caves, reaching a maximum vertical depth within it of 465 feet deep. With a plethora of deep cave diving experience and experience within Phantom Lake Spring itself, on this 2023 expedition, the two divers sought to descend into the far depths of the cave, charting out the winding, unexplored, and otherworldly subterranean caverns of Phantom Lake Springs. On the morning of October 4th, 2023, Brett Hemphill and Andy Pitkin arrived at Phantom Springs Lake and prepared their gear for their upcoming dive. After checking that their gear was in order for the excursion, the men finished making their final preparations before they sank beneath the surface of the water at approximately 10:45 a.m. to begin their dive. As they had planned, the men soon began to descend into the murky depths of the cave system. After some time following the previously charted cavern system, the two men reached and began to explore and chart regions within the cave that had been previously unexplored. The duo continued to descend into the uncharted caverns, reaching a horizontal depth within them of approximately 7,300 feet and descending to a vertical depth of approximately 570 feet deep. And as the men entered a chamber that forked in two directions, they decided that this was a suitable place to turn around and begin their ascent to the surface. Before turning around, Brett located a large rock to tie the team's guideline to and began to do so. While he did this, Pitkin began his ascent, and in video footage captured by him that has not been released to the public, Brett can be seen tying off the rope as the men became separated. Unfortunately, however, as the distance between the men grew, this video footage would mark the last time Brett would be seen alive again. After completing his ascent to the surface, Andy waited a few minutes for Brett to follow suit. As he recalled of the moment the pair became separated, quote, "I started out slowly expecting that he would catch up to me at some points, or hoping that he'd catch up to me at some point, but he never did," he recalled. After waiting for a short while, Andy knew that something was amiss and reported Brett as missing immediately. Following the announcement of Brett's disappearance, a team of highly experienced divers and colleagues of Brett's began to organize an expedition to recover his body from the depths of Phantom Lake Springs. The team spent the next 4 days at the site, arduously and meticulously carrying out their recovery operation, and located Brett's body at a vertical depth of 450 feet deep. The team were indeed ultimately successful in recovering Brett's body from within the sprawling underwater cave system, and following its recovery, his body was sent to the medical examiner's office to determine his cause of death. As of the time of making this video, Brett's official cause of death, listed by the medical examiner's report, was, unsurprisingly, drowning. However, what exactly caused Brett to ultimately fail to resurface has not been made publicly available as of yet, as Andy Pitkin issued a statement that he would issue a statement later about his exact cause of death and the state that they found his body in. However, while this remains just my own speculation as of now, it seems likely that Brett could have become entangled in the guideline and simply ran out of air, or that he could have become disoriented after stirring up the thick layer of silt that lines these expansive underwater winding caves. I'll look back into this after some time has passed, and I'll add Pitkin's statement to the video's description when it is eventually released. Ultimately, Brett Hemphill died while doing something that he had been extremely passionate about since the young age of 14, exploring the alien, subterranean world beneath the surface of our planet. Thank you all for watching.